Hello, my name is James Elmore, and today I would like to speak with you about finding God at a laundromat in New York City. My spiritual awakening began with using The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. And The Artist's Way is a 12-week course in creativity, and within that structure, she comes from a 12-step background. And so there is some spirituality that's woven throughout the text. And at the time, I was agnostic, but she said, consider that God exists, or if that's too much for you, then just consider good, orderly direction, God. So I thought that was interesting. And then later, she said that synchronicity is a sign that God exists. So I thought that was interesting. One of the exercises led me to go to a children's bookstore where I picked up Dalaire's Book of Greek Mythology, and I loved this book as a child. I was always checking it out of the library. It's a great big, beautiful picture book. Um, I brought the book home and I unwrapped it from the cellophane, and it opened to the myth of Sisyphus. And Sisyphus was a very clever king. He was very tricky, and he got out of a lot of situations. And eventually, he died. And as punishment for cheating the gods and death, he was forced to roll a rock up a hill for all of eternity. Um, and if he could ever, at the end of the day, get that rock at the top of the hill to stay where it was, then he could stop. But it always just continued to do that day after day. So I was an actor in New York City at the time, so I had a lot of sympathy for Sisyphus. Um, a couple days, I think it was 2 days later, I was at the post office on 52nd Street in Midtown. 52nd or 48th. I'm not sure anymore. I'm pretty sure it's 52nd. But anyway, the point was that I was standing in line and there was a person ahead of me, and he had a paperback jammed into his back pocket facing me, and it was The Myth of Sisyphus by Albert Camus. And I was like, wait a second, hold on. This is that synchronicity that Julia was talking about, because Sisyphus is rather an unusual name. So I thought, wow, that's really fascinating. So I thought, well, okay, so if synchronicity exists, is that a sign that God exists? And I thought about that for about a week. And I was at the laundromat on 54th Street and 9th Avenue, the Second Wave, and I was a quarter short for I had done all the washing, and now I do need to do the drawing, but I was a quarter short, so I thought, okay, God, if you're there, big guy, make with the quarter. It's a little sassy about it and kind of playful, but just curious to know, is God there or not? Can that be proven, or do you know? How do you know? So I checked through my pockets, and I had a great big like army bag, like army duffel bag that I use as a laundry bag, and I checked that bag and no quarter. So I went and got $1 from my wallet and went to the change machine and got some change, and I put the stuff in the dryer. And 28 minutes later, the dryer goes ding, and I open up the dryer door, and the dryer's like, the spinning is slowing down, and a quarter came flying out at me. And I was like, nice to meet you, hello. So for me, that was enough. And I felt that the answer came in kind of a sassy way. It sort of like came the way that I asked the question. So once I was able to say, okay, God exists, then I was sort of like, and what does that mean? Like, where do I go from here? So I was doing some comparative religion studies and came across there's a terrific cutting of the Gospels by Thomas Jefferson, where he sort of compiles all the stories into one story. I recommend that. I read the Lamsa Bible that was translated from the original Aramaic, the Peshitta version. And that was good. And, it was sort of exploring metaphysically with things, like through, I had these ideas through Jung of sort of, using divination systems like tarot decks and non-tarot specific oracle decks and the I Ching, and so just sort of connecting. And then there was a place in my life where I just stopped all of that because I wanted really direct experience. And it was at that point that I was really keying into, just being conscious, just being present. It's like, oh, well, that's interesting that that song is playing now. Those lyrics apply to what I'm dealing with. Or being in a restaurant and overhearing a conversation, and and having that conversation have meaning for what was going on in my life at that time. And it became, apparent that if I just stayed in the present moment, that I was interacting not just with life, but that there was a divine emanation that was, I felt that was interacting with me, that life had a meaning beyond the nuts and bolts of life, that there was communication that was happening and guiding and directing me. So I was drawn to share this with people, because if you don't believe that there's a God, and I didn't well, it's not that I didn't believe necessarily, but I didn't want to get caught up in it. I felt that there was so much craziness in the world over religion and which religion, and my religion's better or right, or, violence and conflict over that, which is the opposite of what spirituality ought to be. It ought to, bring us together. So, from that framework, I was agnostic. And had it not been for the artist's way, I might never have found God, or my understanding of God, or of the spirit in the world, in our lives, within me, around me. So if you're in that place, whether you're atheist or agnostic, and I just encourage you not to take my word for it, but to, simply be open-minded enough to ask, give me this sign, or, are you there? Just be willing to be with it and see what happens. And I wish you the very best. Every blessing.